So one of the things that I've been doing recently is I've been watching DVDs of Mad Men. Sorry to bring the tone down. Has anybody else been watching Mad Men? It's a really wonderful HBO series. It's about an advertising agency on Madison Avenue in the 1950s, 60s and early 70s. It's a wonderful series. It shows you that the television series is a new kind of form, it seems to me. It's beautifully shot, it's wonderfully written, it's wonderfully acted. The main character, Don Draper, is, well, the main character, and he has a certain depth to him. And as the series has gone on, I think we're on series 5 now, something like that, I only watch one episode a week, folks, don't worry. I won't tell you in what circumstances. Anyway, as the series go on, he has this depth. And he does lots of bad things. He works for an advertising agency, but he has this kind of depth. He has this certain depth to him. And as the series goes on, you keep seeing him in some of the difficult moments of people's lives. And somewhat to your surprise, he acts for the good, in a way that's very undemonstrative, in a way that's just very, very good. And what I've been struck with this series is it's that fact about him that gives him as the lead, the depth, and gives the series its spiritual weight, its human weight. And that made me feel that what we call ethics is really about the deepening of life. That what you get with him is not a saint, not even in some ways a very sort of good man, but in certain key moments, he behaves in such a way as to do the good. Yeah? And it really struck me how the deepening aspect of life is ethics. But it seems such a bad word, doesn't it? Ethics just puts people off, puts me off. But how do we talk about in more and more ways, how do we talk about the deepening of the person? I actually think you see that in Mad Men through this lead character of Donald Draper. You see the deepening of the person through how they behave. Of course, what we've got Bhante Sangharaj's wonderful books on ethics, which are wonderful. But we need more and more people to write about it in a way that brings out this mysterious deepening to life that no word really does justice to. Goodness feels too good. Ethics feels too technical and rather philosophical. There's no adequate word to describe this deepening to life, which is to do with our behaviour. So what we've got now is we've got Subhadramati's book. And Subhadramati's book is trying to bring to life this mystery of deepening, trying to bring to life how we become the lead character in our own life, how we become the deepest character in our own life. And reading the book is very much like talking to Subhadramati. There she is. It's a practical, warm, enthusiastic, hands-on, here and now approach. So, for instance, we learn a lot about Subhadramati's childhood. Q.
As a child, I used to go to chapel a lot. As well as morning mass on Sundays, I'd go to rosary and benediction on Sunday evenings, mass every morning before school, and confession on Saturdays. One morning, while I was trying to visualize the glories of heaven, I was overwhelmed by the thought that God was just an invention constructed by humans to explain things they didn't yet understand. So we don't only learn about God and heaven and the rosary, we also learn quite a lot about Subhadramati's friends. A friend of mine, Canute, had joined a gang at the age of 13. And by the time he was 15, he'd been in juvenile detention facilities. By his 20s, he was living a life of hard drinking and fighting, working as a doorman in London's nightclubs. Then, a chance meeting with an old friend rekindled his interest in philosophy, As a result, he came to the Buddhist center and learned to meditate.
So we learn about Subhadramati's friends, many friends in the book. Not only that, we're warned against moralism. One of the dangers, of course, of this kind of book, and any kind of book about ethics, is moralism. It's one of the great dangers of ethics. So we're warned against moralism in the character of Bertha.
As a further reward, she was allowed to walk in the Prince's Park. As she was taking her walk and congratulating herself, a ferocious wolf approached. The first thing that it saw was Bertha. Her pinafore was so spotlessly white and clean that it could be seen from a great distance. She ran and hid herself in the shrubbery, and at first the wolf couldn't find her. But her trembling made the meadow for obedience clink against the meadows for good behaviour and punctuality. At the giveaway sound, the wolf dashed into the bush, its eyes gleaming with triumph, dragged Bertha out and devoured her to the last morsel.
So that's what happens if you get to be moralistic. You get devoured to the last morsel. Take the warning. Subhadramati also in the book reveals some of her mistakes.
Once, in a rather misguided exercise, I asked people at a class to call out the forms of hatred while I wrote them on a flip chart. After about 10 minutes, the atmosphere in the room became positively hostile. People stopped simply calling out the words and started to direct them at each other. He was there.
It went on and on and on. It was sort of spite, hatred, resentment, cynicism, loathing, louder and louder. And there were also jokes in the book.
There's an old joke about a man who goes to confession in a Catholic church and confesses he stole some chickens. Before the priest gives him absolution, he asks, "How many chickens was it?" "2, Father," says the man. "But make it 3 and I'll get another on the way back."
There's also, in the book, a lot of references to poetry, a beautiful sort of use of poetry to, again, make it clear that what we call ethics, very unhelpful word in many ways, what we call ethics is a way of deepening life.
I remember cycling home along the canals of Dublin that night with the glorious sensation that the whole world had become a poem. In Sangharakshita's analogy, the Buddha is like the poet, and his actions are the poem.
And then finally, she, again and again, finds a metaphor that is rooted in our ordinary everyday life, but speaks at something beyond our life.
My friend was on retreat in the Spanish mountains, camping outside every night on the bare earth. The first night, lying inside her little tent on her own, hearing the noises of all the creeping and crawling things outside, she was so frightened she couldn't sleep. When it came to the next night, she knew she'd have to do something to remedy the situation. She knew she needed all her strength for the trek ahead, so she couldn't afford to miss more sleep. When she told me what she did, I was taken aback. She dismantled her tent and slept in the open. "I was lying on the inside, scared of what was outside," she said. "So I took the tent away, and there was no inside and outside anymore." Sure enough, free from the fear of what was outside, from then on she slept soundly. What she did was daring, inspired, and totally counterintuitive. Our instinct, especially when we feel threatened, is to fortify our boundaries, or try to. But for my friend, freedom from fear came from doing the opposite. By dismantling the tent, she dismantled the notion of boundaries altogether.
So I really recommend Subhadramati's book. Just from those tiny excerpts there, you really get a sense of what reading the book is like. The book includes German rock music, an unearthly horse, the London tube bombings, the Paralympics, Subhadramati's father, Ibrox football stadium, Tarajara cookbooks, calligraphy and Allen Ginsberg, and very much more. It's like having a really good chat with a really good friend, which is what Subhadramati is to me. A really good chat with a really good friend. It's a very good book for any of us to read. It would also, I think, be a good course book if you're thinking that you'd like to run an ethics course, perhaps called Not About Being Good. You might use this as a course book. It's got these lots of very straightforward, practical, short applications of ethics, to use that word. I really recommend that you buy it. As I say, it's just like being with a friend. It's a very beautiful book. It looks very beautiful. It's called Not About Being Good.